The twin suns of Varelia burned high above the alien city, casting long shadows over the market of chains. Here, cages lined the streets, each one holding a living soul. Creatures of every shape and color sat in silence or cried out in strange tongues, their chains rattling with every movement. The smell of metal, sweat, and fear filled the air. Merchants shouted prices, their voices mixing with the hum of alien drones floating above. In this place, freedom had a price, and beauty was sold to the highest bidder. Captain Adrian Cole walked through the crowd, his boots striking against the cracked stone road. He was the only human in sight, his tall frame drawing curious glances. He had been sent on a mission by his employer, a wealthy alien diplomat from the Tyro Syndicate. The order was simple but strange. Buy the most beautiful slave in the market. Adrian didn't ask why, but something about the command unsettled him. He was a soldier, a captain of the Terran fleet, not a trader of lives, yet here he was, surrounded by cages and misery. He passed rows of prisoners. Some cried for help. Others reached out through the bars, begging. Most looked defeated, their eyes empty, their hope gone. But then he saw her. She was standing in the shadows of a tall cage, her posture straight, her head high. Her skin was the color of silver-blue metal, glowing faintly under the sunlight. Long hair, the shade of midnight, fell across her shoulders. Her eyes were like green fire, sharp and unyielding. Unlike the others, she wasn't crying, begging, or looking away. She was watching him, as if she already knew who he was. Adrian stopped, his hand resting on the hilt of his sidearm, the slave. Master noticed and smiled, a wide, sharp-toothed grin. "Ah, you have good taste, human," the alien hissed, stepping closer. "This one is dangerous, and very expensive." Adrian's brow furrowed. "Dangerous?" The alien chuckled. "Her name is Serenia. She is from the Lissari, a dying race. Her kind is forbidden to breed, forbidden to live freely. Her DNA is worth more than gold, but she has tried to escape. Twice." Adrian turned back to her, studying her face. Serenia didn't flinch under his gaze. She simply tilted her head and spoke, her voice calm. "Are you here to buy me, or to kill me?" The question caught him off guard. For a moment, he didn't answer. Finally, he said, "Neither." The slave master laughed, shaking his head. "If you are not buying to own, then you are wasting my time." Adrian reached into his coat and pulled out a pouch of credits, tossing it onto the table. "I'll take her," he said flatly. The alien's eyes widened at the amount. "Paid in full, and no questions asked." The cage hissed open, and Serenia stepped out, the sunlight washing over her skin like liquid silver. She looked at Adrian, her expression unreadable. Chains still bound her wrists, but she walked with pride. As they moved away from the market, Adrian leaned closer, speaking low so only she could hear. "I'm not here to own you. I'm here to give you freedom. And maybe a family." Her steps slowed, her eyes searching his face. "You don't even know me," she said. Adrian kept walking, scanning the crowd for trouble. "I don't need to," he replied. "I know what it's like to be trapped. To have someone decide your future without asking you." They reached the edge of the market where his transport waited, but before they could board, Serenia's gaze flicked upward. "Someone is watching us," she whispered. Adrian followed her eyes and saw a shadowed figure on a rooftop, a thin beam of red light glinting in the sun. "Sniper, move," Adrian ordered, pulling her behind the transport. A shot rang out, burning a hole in the ground where she had just stood. The crowd screamed and scattered, alien merchants ducking for cover. Adrian drew his blaster and fired back at the rooftop. But the shooter was already gone. Serenia's voice was steady, almost too calm. "They're not after you. They're after me." Adrian holstered his weapon and grabbed her arm, guiding her into the transport. "Then we're leaving," he said. The ship lifted off, engines roaring as they broke through the haze of the city. From the cockpit, Adrian glanced at her. "Who are they?" Her eyes stayed on the stars ahead. The ones who will never let me live. The ones who know what I can give, she said quietly. Adrian didn't press further, but a weight settled in his chest. He had been given a simple mission: buy a slave, deliver her to his employer. But now he knew. Whatever Serenia was running from, it was big, and if he kept her, he'd be running from it too. Yet as he looked at her, sitting proud despite the chains, he knew one thing: he wasn't going to hand her over. The stars stretched into lines. As the transport jumped into hyperspace, somewhere in the darkness, hunters would be coming for them. But Adrian had already made his choice. He would fight for her, he would protect her, and maybe, just maybe, he would become the father of her children. The hum of the transport's engines was steady, a low vibration through the metal floor. Adrian sat in the pilot's chair, eyes scanning the star map on the console. Serenia sat across from him, her wrists still bound by light chains though. He had loosened them, for the first time since leaving the market. She spoke. "You didn't ask where I want to go," she said, her voice calm but sharp. Adrian glanced at her. "Didn't think you'd tell me." She gave a faint smile. "You're right." Outside the viewport, the stars shimmered against the black void. The ship sailed smoothly through hyperspace, streaks of light bending and twisting around them. Adrian had always found this sight peaceful. But tonight, the silence felt heavy. He reached over, pulling a small kit from under the seat. "Hold still," he said, leaning toward her. She tensed slightly but didn't pull away as he unlocked her chains. The metal fell to the floor with a soft clink. Serenia rubbed her wrists, her green eyes watching him closely. "You don't act like a man who buys slaves," she said. "That's because I'm not," he replied. "I was sent to buy you, but I'm not delivering you to anyone." Her brow furrowed. "Do you know what that means? You just made yourself my enemy's enemy. And that's never safe." Adrian leaned back in his chair. "Then tell me who your enemy is." She looked away, toward the swirling light outside. "My people, the Lissari, once lived on a beautiful ocean world. We had cities of crystal, towers that touched the sky. We had peace for centuries," she began. "But then, the syndicates discovered us. They learned our blood could be used for something powerful, something no other species could give." Her voice tightened. "They hunted us. They took the women. They forbade us to have children unless they controlled it." Adrian's jaw clenched. "And you?" She met his gaze, her eyes burning. "I escaped, but not before they decided I was valuable enough to keep alive. To breed when they chose, with whoever they chose." Her words hung in the air like a shadow. "That's why. They wanted me to buy you," Adrian muttered. "Not for my own use, but to hand you over to someone who'd force it." Serenia didn't answer right away. Instead, she shifted in her seat, her tone softer now. "Do you know why they wanted a human?" Adrian shook his head. "Because a child born from a human and a Lysari would be something entirely new," she said. "Faster, stronger, able to survive in almost any environment. A weapon in the shape of a child." The ship's console beeped suddenly, breaking the moment. Adrian leaned forward and checked the sensors. A small blip was following them, faint but steady. "We've got company," he said. Serenia's eyes narrowed. "Cloaked ship." "They've been following since we left." Adrian adjusted their course, veering toward a cluster of uncharted stars. The blip stayed with them. He flicked on the ship's rear cameras. The shadowy outline of a small, sleek vessel appeared, for just a moment before vanishing again. "They're good," Adrian muttered. "They're syndicate hunters," Serenia said quietly. "They won't stop until I'm back in chains. Or dead." Hours passed in tense silence as they moved deeper into unknown space. Finally, Adrian set the ship to autopilot and stood. "Come with me," he said, leading her to the observation dome at the top of the transport. The dome opened to a breathtaking view, a sea of stars, endless and bright, 1,000 colors shimmering in the dark. Serenia stepped forward, her eyes wide, the light reflecting off her silver blue skin. "This Reminds me of home, she whispered. Adrian leaned against the railing, watching her more than the stars. You've been running a long time, haven't you? She nodded slowly. Ever since I was old enough to fight back and to lose people I cared about. For a moment, her voice trembled, but she caught herself. Adrian spoke gently. You don't have to run alone anymore. Serenia turned toward him, her expression unreadable. You don't know what you're offering, human. If you stay with me, you'll have the syndicates, the hunters, and the black market all after you. Adrian smiled faintly. Then I'll make new enemies. I've had worse. A faint shimmer passed over the dome's glass. A disturbance. Adrian's eyes narrowed. They found us. Before she could ask, a warning alarm echoed through the ship. Red lights flashing along the walls. The cloaked vessel had dropped its disguise. Appearing right behind them, weapons armed, Adrian bolted back to the cockpit. Serenia closed behind. The hunter's ship sent a short transmission. A single voice, deep and cold. The Lisari belongs to the syndicate. Hand her over, and we let the human live. Adrian's hands tightened on the controls. He glanced at Serenia, who stood silently, her chin high. He spoke into the cum. She's not yours to take. And cut the channel. The hunter's ship opened fire. Beams of red light cutting through the darkness. Adrian jerked the controls, throwing the transport into a dive. The stars spun wildly outside as the chase began. Serenia gripped the edge of the seat, her voice calm despite the chaos. They won't stop. Adrian, she said. He didn't look away from the controls. Then neither will I. As the ships weaved through an asteroid field, rocks tumbling. In the black void, Adrian fired back, the transport's cannons lighting the darkness. One well-placed shot grazed the hunter's shields. Forcing it to pull back slightly, Adrian seized the chance. Slamming the hyperdrive switch, the stars stretched again, and the hunter disappeared from the sensors. Silence returned, but it was thinner now, fragile. Adrian leaned back, breathing hard. Serenia's voice was low, almost a whisper. You could have saved yourself. But you didn't. Adrian met her gaze. I didn't save you because I had to. I saved you because I want to. She looked away, but not before he saw the faintest flicker of something in her eyes. Trust. Outside, the endless stars waited. But somewhere out there, the hunters were already plotting their next move. The space station hung like a dark crown in orbit around a dying red star. Its rings turned slowly, speckled with blinking lights from docked ships. Adrian guided the transport toward one of the outer landing bays, keeping his speed steady. The syndicate hunters had been gone for hours, but both he and Serenia knew they would return. They always did. This place is neutral territory, Adrian said, breaking the silence. No weapons allowed inside. No fighting, no hunting. Serenia gave a faint, skeptical smile. Neutral until someone pays enough credits to look the other way. She wasn't wrong. Still, they needed fuel, supplies, and a chance to breathe. The docking clamps locked. Onto the transport with a metallic thud, the airlock hissed open, letting in the mixed scent of alien spices, machine oil, and recycled air. Crowds of travelers moved through the wide corridors, merchants in layered robes, miners in heavy suits, and soldiers from half a dozen species. Adrian stayed close to Serenia, scanning faces, watching for trouble. They hadn't gone far before a voice called out from the shadows. Captain Cole. Adrian stopped, turning toward the sound. A tall figure stepped out, humanoid, but with pale skin covered in faint scars, and a visor that glowed faint. Red over one eye, he wore a dark coat with a bounty hunter's insignia on the shoulder. Adrian's hand went to his sidearm, but the man raised his empty hands. If I wanted you dead, human, you wouldn't have seen me. Serenia's eyes narrowed. You're a syndicate hound. The man tilted his head. Once. But I don't serve them anymore. Adrian's voice was cold. Then why are you here? The hunter stepped closer, his boots silent on the metal floor. I came to give you a warning, he said. She's not just a slave. She's the last viable Lisari breeder outside Syndicate control. And the key to something much bigger than either of you realize. Serenya's jaw tightened. You think I don't know that? He ignored her, speaking to Adrian. Do you know what happens if a Lisari and a human have a child? The Syndicate has been trying to create one for years. And if they succeed, they'll have soldiers who can survive any world, resist disease, and outfight almost anything in the galaxy. Adrian didn't flinch. And you expect me to just hand her over because you're scared of what she could be? The hunter's visor dimmed slightly. No. I expect you to run faster. Because they've already put a price on your head. From his coat, he pulled out a small device and tossed it to Adrian. A holodisplay flickered to life, showing Adrian's face, Serenya's face, and a long list of bounties in multiple alien languages. The largest number glowed beside Serenya's image. They've marked her as capture alive, the hunter said. But for you, dead or alive pays the same. Serenya stepped forward, her voice steady but laced with anger. Why warn us? What do you get out of this? The hunter looked at her for a long moment. Because I used to hunt people like you. And I don't want to be that man anymore. He turned to leave, then paused. You can't run forever, Captain. But if you're smart, you'll head for the ghost sectors. Even the Syndicate fears what's out there. With that, he vanished into the crowd, moving like a shadow until he was gone. Adrian slipped the holo-device into his jacket and looked at Serenya. Ghost sectors? He asked. She nodded slowly. Empty regions, full of derelict ships, dead colonies, and strange phenomena. No patrols, no trade routes. Just danger. Adrian gave a faint smile. Sounds perfect. They finished gathering supplies quickly. Every sense alert for trouble. But as they made their way back to the docking bay, Adrian noticed a shift in the crowd. Glances that lingered too long, whispers that died as they passed. Serenya noticed too, her hand brushing the hilt of a stolen knife she had hidden under her sleeve. When they reached the transport, Adrian keyed the hatch open, but before they could board, a voice rang out from behind. There they are. 3 armed figures emerged from the crowd, their armor marked with the Syndicate emblem. The lead one raised a stun rifle. Lisari female. Surrender now. Adrian didn't hesitate, drawing his blaster and firing a warning shot that hit the wall beside them. The Syndicate soldiers scattered for cover as the docking bay erupted in chaos. Civilians running for the exits. Serenya slipped inside the transport while Adrian covered her, blasting one soldier's weapon out of his hands before diving into the cockpit. The moment he hit the pilot's chair, he powered up the engines. Hold on, he shouted, slamming the controls forward. The transport shot out of the bay, alarms blaring in their wake. Behind them, the Syndicate ships gave chase, their engines burning bright in the black. Serenya strapped into the co-pilot seat, her voice low but urgent. They won't stop this time. They'll chase us until one of us is gone. Adrian's eyes stayed on the viewport, stars wheeling past as he pushed the engines harder. Then we make sure it's not us, he said. The hunter's warning echoed in his mind. You can't run forever. For now, running was all they could do, but deep down, Adrian knew. At some point, they would have to turn and fight. The stars blurred into long silver streaks as the transport jumped into hyperspace. Adrian gripped the controls tighter than usual, his eyes fixed on the navigation readouts. Serenya sat beside him in the co-pilot seat, her green eyes locked on the scanner that showed the Syndicate ship still following. They're not slowing down, she said quietly. They won't. Unless we give them a reason, Adrian replied. The ghost sectors loomed ahead on the star map, a vast, dark region of space with no trade lanes. Number colonies, no patrols. The warnings flashed in red across the console. Unstable gravity. Navigation unreliable. Proceed at own risk. Adrian's jaw tightened. Looks like home. Serenya glanced at him. You mean looks like suicide? He didn't answer, just angled the ship toward the dark void. Within minutes, the comforting streaks of hyperspace broke apart into a swirl of shadows and distorted light. Space here felt different, like the stars were watching. A faint vibration ran through the hull, as if the void itself was testing them. Serenia leaned forward, her voice tense. "You've been here before?" "Once," Adrian said. "Lost 2 good men and half my ship. But the Syndicate won't follow deep in, not unless they're desperate." A sudden jolt rocked the transport, making the lights flicker. The sensors lit up. A gravitational rift had opened ahead, a twisting whirl of light and darkness that pulled everything toward it. Adrian's hands flew over the controls, forcing the ship into a sharp climb. "Hold on," he shouted. The ship groaned, metal straining against the pull. Serenia gripped the seat, her voice sharp. "If you're trying to impress me, it's working." Adrian allowed himself the faintest smirk. "Good to know," they broke free of the rift's grip, but the relief didn't last. A Syndicate hunter ship had followed them in after all, its sleek black hull glinting in the faint light. "They're insane," Adrian muttered. Serenia's eyes narrowed. "No. They're desperate." The hunter's weapons lit up, beams of energy slicing through the darkness. Adrian swerved between drifting chunks of dead ships, rusting hulks from battles fought long ago. Metal scraped against their hull as they threaded the narrow paths between the wrecks. "Ever flown through a graveyard?" Adrian asked, his voice steady despite the chaos. "Not while being shot at." Serenia replied, her tone dry. One beam grazed their rear thrusters, sending the transport spinning. Alarms blared, the hull rattled, and a smell of burning metal filled the cockpit. Adrian fought the controls, leveling them out. "Rear shields down to 20%, Serenia warned. "Then we'll just have to be harder to hit," Adrian said, pushing the engines to their limit. They shot deeper into the void, weaving through clouds of cosmic dust that glowed faint. Blue in the darkness, strange shapes moved inside the clouds, shadows that didn't belong to ships. Serenia's voice was almost a whisper. "We're not alone here." Adrian kept his eyes forward. "Ignore them. Whatever they are, they're not shooting at us." A sudden blip appeared on the scanner, an asteroid field ahead, thick and fast-moving. Adrian grinned. "Perfect. Perfect." Serenia repeated, disbelief in her voice. "They'll have to slow down to follow us through," Adrian explained, already guiding the ship toward the tumbling rocks. The transport plunged into the field, asteroids spinning in every direction. Adrian swerved, rolled, and dived, the hull groaning under the strain. Behind them, the hunter ship followed, its hull scraping against rock after rock. One massive asteroid drifted into their path. "Too close," Serenia warned. Adrian didn't. Slow, instead rolling the ship sideways and scraping past it with barely a meter to spare. The hunter ship wasn't so lucky. Its side smashed against the asteroid, sending it spinning away in a spray of metal shards. "Looks like we lost them," Adrian said, breathing out slowly. "For now," Serenia replied. Though her shoulders eased just a little, they cleared the asteroid field and drifted into a calmer pocket of the void. The stars here seemed brighter, almost too close. Adrian cut the engines, letting the ship float silently. "Why are we stopping?" Serenia asked. "To hide," he said simply. "Engines cold, no signal. They can't track what they can't find." For the first time in hours, there was quiet. Serenia stood and walked to the observation window, staring out at the glowing dust clouds. "It's strange," she said softly. "I've been running for so long. I don't know what it feels like to just stop." Adrian joined her, leaning against the railing. "Feels dangerous," he said. She looked at him with a faint smile. "Feels peaceful." In that silence, the tension between them shifted, not gone, but changed. Adrian looked at her and said, "Back there, in the market. I told you I wasn't buying you to own you." "I meant it." Her eyes softened. "Then why did you?" He didn't hesitate. "Because I wanted to give you a choice. And maybe I wanted to see a world where you have children who aren't born in chains." For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Serenia stepped closer, her voice low. "If we survive this, maybe that world is possible, Before Adrian could answer, the scanner beeped softly. Another ship had entered the void. Not syndicate, not human, but something else entirely. The shape on the screen was unlike any design Adrian knew. Serenia's voice was tense again. "We're not out of danger yet." Adrian turned back to the controls, his jaw set. "Then we keep moving," he said. The engines roared back to life, and the transport disappeared deeper into the black, somewhere ahead. The void held its own secrets, and maybe answers they didn't expect. The transport broke through the last stretch of the void, emerging into the clearer stars of charted space. Adrian adjusted the scanners, looking for a safe place to hide. Instead, a distress signal flared on the console, its sharp beeping echoing. Through the cockpit, he tapped the display. A hollow message flickered to life, showing a small colony on a rocky planet. Smoke rose from burning buildings, and panicked voices cried in the background. A single message repeated in multiple languages. "We are under attack. Requesting any ship for evacuation." Serenia stood beside him, her eyes fixed on the image. "It's Syndicate," she said, her voice tight. "That's their armor, their ships." Adrian glanced at her. "We could pass by. Pretend we never saw it." Her gaze didn't leave the holla. "Those people won't survive an hour without help." Adrian sighed. "If we go down there, they'll know we're alive. They'll know where to find us." Serenia turned to him, her expression fierce. "And if we don't, we're no better than they are." He looked at her for a long moment, then powered up the thrusters. "Strap in," he said. "We're going down." The transport descended through the thin atmosphere, flames licking the hull from re-entry. Below, the colony looked worse than the holla had shown. Buildings in ruins, fires burning unchecked, and syndicate gunships strafing the streets. Adrian landed in a clear area near the main square, the landing gear kicking up dust and ash. The ramp dropped, and they stepped out into chaos. Blaster fire cracked through the air. Adrian returned fire immediately, his shots precise, taking down 2 syndicate soldiers before they could react. Serenia moved like liquid shadow beside him, her stolen knife flashing as she disarmed a guard and took his rifle in one smooth motion. Civilians ran toward them, their faces smeared with ash. Clutching children and whatever they could carry, Adrian pointed toward the transport, shouting, "Get inside! Move!" They worked quickly, covering the evacuees as they poured in. But in the smoke and noise, Serenia's eyes caught something. A side building where screams echoed louder. She darted toward it without hesitation. "Serenia!" Adrian called, but she didn't stop inside. She found a makeshift holding cell. 6 alien women, their skin the same silver blue as hers. Chained and bruised, her breath caught. "Lisari." One of them looked up, recognition flashing in her eyes. "Serenia? We thought you were dead." Serenia moved fast, breaking their restraints with the stolen rifle's butt. "You're coming with me," she said, her voice trembling but firm. "Back." Outside, Adrian saw her emerging from the building with the women. For a split second, he felt relief. Then a syndicate gunship swooped overhead, targeting them with its cannons. "Down!" he shouted, diving toward Serenia and pushing her to the ground as a barrage of fire tore through the street. The impact shook the ground, throwing debris into the air. Pain burned through Adrian's side. He looked down to see a deep scorch. Where the blast had grazed him, his vision swam, but he forced himself up, covering Serenia and the others as they ran for the transport. Each step felt heavier, the heat from the wound spreading through his body. By the time they reached the ramp, his knees buckled. Serenia caught him, her voice sharp. "Stay with me, Adrian." He tried to wave her off. "Get them inside." "I'll be right behind you." She shook her head. "I'm not leaving you." The ramp closed just as another blast hit the ground where they had stood. Inside the transport, civilians huddled together, the rescued Lisari women clutching each other. Adrian collapsed into the pilot's seat, his hands shaky as he started the engines. Serenia stood beside him, ready to take over if he lost consciousness. The transport roared upward, engines straining as they climbed through the atmosphere. Behind them, the colony burned. The Syndicate gunships circling like predators denied their prey. In orbit, 2 more Syndicate ships moved to intercept Adrian. Pushed the engines to maximum, the strain making the metal vibrate under their feet. The transport dove between the larger ships, narrowly avoiding a volley of plasma fire. One blast clipped their wing, sending them spinning. But Adrian steadied the controls with a grunt of pain when the stars finally replaced the burning world. Below, Adrian cut the engines just long enough to breathe. His face was pale, sweat beading on his forehead. Serenia knelt beside him, pressing a cloth to his wound. "You need medical attention," she said firmly. Adrian gave a faint smile. "If I don't make it, find someone who will love you and give you the children you deserve." Her hands froze on the cloth, her eyes locking on his. "Don't you dare say that," she said, her voice fierce. "I'm not losing you." He looked at her, the corners of his mouth curving slightly, stubborn. "Just like me." For a moment, the noise of the engines faded, the stars outside unmoving. She kept her hand on his wound, holding his gaze. "You saved me. Now it's my turn to save you," she whispered. The transport drifted onward, carrying its wounded captain, a group of rescued civilians, and the last free Lysari in the galaxy. Somewhere behind them, the Syndicate would be regrouping. Somewhere ahead, more danger waited. But for the first time, Serenia felt something different. In her chest, not just survival, but the hope that maybe they could win. The transport's med bay was small, barely enough room for a narrow bed. A wall of old medical equipment and a storage cabinet. Adrian lay on the bed, his shirt cut open to reveal the blackened burn across his ribs. Serenia stood over him, her hands steady as she cleaned the wound, though her eyes betrayed the storm inside her. "You should rest," she said, her voice calm but firm. Adrian smirked faintly. "Rest? We've got half the Syndicate chasing us, and a ship full of people counting on us. You'll be no good to them if you bleed out," she replied, wrapping fresh bandages around him with careful precision. Outside the med bay, the rescued civilians huddled in the cargo hold, speaking in hushed tones. The Lysari women sat apart, their eyes often drifting towards Serenia when she passed. They whispered to each other, their faces a mix of relief and disbelief. The lost daughter of Lysari was alive. When Adrian tried to sit up, a sharp pain forced him back down. Serenia placed a hand on his chest. "Don't be stubborn, Captain." Her touch was warm, steady, and it froze him for just a moment. He looked at her, searching her face. "You've been through hell, Serenia. Yet you still risked your life for strangers on that colony." Her gaze didn't waver, "because they deserved a chance. Just like you gave me." A faint tremor ran through the ship, breaking the moment. Serenia moved to the cockpit, checking the scanners. A small patrol craft was trailing them at a distance, not attacking yet. When she returned, Adrian had already pulled himself to his feet, one hand on the wall for support. "You're supposed to be in bed," she said sharply. "I'll rest when we're safe," he replied, his voice even. For the next hours, they worked together. Serenia in the pilot's seat, Adrian in the co-pilot's, guiding the transport through the dim corridors of uncharted space. The civilians rotated through rest shifts, while the Lysari women began repairing damage to the ship under Serenia's guidance. Adrian noticed how quickly they followed her orders, how naturally she took command. It was as if she had been a leader all along, just waiting for the chains to come off. When the patrol craft drew closer, Adrian prepared the weapons. "They're testing us," he said, watching the blip on the scanner, "seeing if we'll run." Serenia's hands gripped the controls. "Then let's not run." The patrol ship fired first, its energy beams cutting across the void. Adrian returned fire, hitting one of its engines. Serenia spun the transport sideways, weaving between debris from an old battlefield. Adrian took another shot, this time striking the craft's cockpit. The enemy ship spiraled away, disappearing. Into the darkness, as the danger faded, adrenaline still surged through both of them. Serenia glanced at Adrian, her voice low. "You fight like someone with nothing to lose." He met her gaze. "And you fight like someone who finally has something to protect." They drifted into a quiet sector, switching the engines to low power to avoid detection. The stars hung like frozen sparks beyond the viewport. In the dim light of the cockpit, Serenia leaned back, her eyes half closed. Adrian broke the silence. "What happens when this ends? When the syndicate is gone, when you're free for good?" She looked at him, and for once there was no guarded distance in her voice. "Then I decide what kind of life I want. And who I want it with." He didn't look away. "And if that life meant raising children somewhere safe, would you want that?" Her lips curved faintly. "Maybe. If it was with someone who fought for me, not against me. Before either could say more." The ship's com crackled with a coded signal, not from the syndicate, but from a hidden channel. Adrian decoded it, revealing a message. "Safe harbor available. Coordinates attached. Come quickly." Serenia frowned. "Could be a trap, or a chance," Adrian said, studying the coordinates. "Either way, we're out of options." They set a course, but the journey would take several hours with the civilians resting, the Lazari women watching quietly, and the ship's hum as their only background. Adrian and Serenia found themselves alone again in the cockpit. She glanced at his side. "Does it still hurt?" "Only when I breathe," he replied with a faint grin. She rolled her eyes but didn't hide her smile. For a long moment, they simply watched the stars. The chaos of the last days seemed distant, replaced by something heavier but warmer. It wasn't just survival anymore. Something unspoken had taken root between them, born in fire and blood, forged in the decision to keep fighting together. When the navigation alert chimed, marking their halfway point, Adrian leaned forward, adjusting the course slightly. Serenia rested her hand briefly over his on the console, her touch lingering just a second longer than needed. Neither said anything, but the message was clear. Outside, space stretched endlessly, but for the first time since they had met, they were not just running from something, they were heading toward something. And whatever waited at those coordinates, they would face it together. The stars outside the cockpit shimmered as the transport neared the given coordinates. Adrian watched the scanner, every muscle tense. Serenia stood beside him, her hand resting lightly on the back of his chair. "There's nothing here," she said, scanning the empty void. "Not yet," Adrian replied. A faint ripple appeared ahead, space bending like a curtain being pulled aside, out of the distortion. A hidden world emerged, surrounded by a faint energy shield. It was beautiful. Oceans that glowed in shades of silver blue, mountains shining under twin suns, forests that seemed to breathe with life. Serenia's breath caught. It's like Lisser," she whispered. Adrian glanced at her. "Home?" Her eyes softened. "It could be." The cum crackled to life. A voice speaking in clear standard. "Transport. You are entering the sanctuary of Haven's Reach. Identify yourself." Adrian pressed the cum button. "Captain Adrian Cole. Terran Fleet, we're carrying refugees, including Lasari." There was a long pause before the voice returned. "Permission granted. But be warned. You're being followed." Adrian's eyes flicked to the scanner. The syndicate fleet was closing in fast. 5 ships, heavily armed. He cursed under his breath. "They must have tracked our jump." The sanctuary's shield shimmered as they approached. Serenia's voice was firm. "If they break through, they'll destroy this place." Adrian set his jaw. "Then we don't let them through." He turned to the rescued civilians, giving quick instructions. "Get everyone to the escape pods inside the shield now." Serenia started to move with them, but Adrian caught her wrist. "I need you here," he said. "We do this together." The first syndicate ship fired, its plasma beams cutting through the dark. Adrian rolled the transport hard to the side, the blast missing by meters. Serenia manned the secondary cannons, her shots striking one of the smaller ships and sending it spinning into the void. "Nice shot," Adrian called. "Don't get used to it," she replied, but there was a spark of pride in her eyes. Two enemy ships broke formation, trying to flank them. Adrian pushed the engines, diving toward the planet's gravity well. The sudden drop pulled the Syndicate ships with them, forcing them into a tighter path. Serenia targeted the lead vessel, firing a barrage that tore through its shields and sent debris scattering. But the largest Syndicate cruiser was still coming, its massive shadow filling the viewport. It hailed them, the voice cold and commanding. "Hand over the Lasari female, and your death will be swift." Serenia's gaze was locked on the viewport, her voice steady. "Tell them no." Adrian's reply was short, "Not happening." And he cut the channel. The cruiser's cannons lit up. Adrian spun the transport into a barrel roll, skimming past the blasts. Serenia's shots hit the cruiser's wing, but its shields held. "They're too strong," she said, frustration in her voice. "Then we hit them where it hurts," Adrian replied, steering directly toward the cruiser's bridge. The enemy commander didn't expect the transport to charge. Adrian swerved at the last moment, releasing a full spread of torpedoes. They slammed into the cruiser's side, breaching its shield. In a burst of fire, the massive ship listed, power flickering. "Shields down!" Serenia shouted, firing the cannons one last time. The explosion lit the void like a new star, the shockwave rocking their transport. The remaining Syndicate ships broke off, retreating into hyperspace. Adrian exhaled slowly, his grip easing on the controls. "They'll be back," Serenia said quietly. "Then we'll be ready," he replied. The sanctuary's shield opened to let them through. As they descended, Serenia looked at the silver-blue oceans, the lush forests, the quiet mountains. "This place, it could be a future for my people," she said softly. Adrian glanced at her. "And for you?" She met his gaze, a small smile forming. "For me too." "If you're there." They landed in a clearing near the shore, where sanctuary guards and healers met them. The civilians and the Lasari women stepped out first, their faces lighting with hope. Serenia turned to Adrian before leaving the cockpit. "You've given me more than freedom, Adrian. You've given me a choice." He tilted his head. "And what choice is that?" She stepped closer, her voice warm. "To not run anymore. To build something instead." The ocean wind carried the scent of salt and life into the transport. Adrian looked at the horizon, then back at her. "Then let's build it together," he said, as the twin suns set over Haven's Reach. The shadows grew long. Adrian and Serenia stood side by side, watching the rescued Lasari reunite with others in the sanctuary. It was not the end of the fight. The Syndicate would return, and the galaxy was still dangerous. But for now, there was peace. And somewhere in that peace was the beginning of the family Adrian had promised. Serenia glanced at him, her green eyes soft in the fading light. "You didn't just save me, Adrian. You gave me a future," he smiled. "And maybe that future starts sooner than you think." Her hand slipped into his, and together they faced the horizon, ready for whatever came next.